Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Sports. I am Ralph LaBella.
And I'm Ron Sen with a mixed bag of news for Boston sports fans. First, it ain't easy being green. And I'm not talking about the Celtics. Jeff Green was basically run out of town, and he comes back in and scores 19 points in the championship game for the Eastern Conference Finals, making all kinds of plays that we never expected him to make. We probably would have been better off if Kevin Love didn't get his bell rung again.
Right. Well, the thing is, they weren't covering him either. I think Morris was on him. Remember when Tatum scored those 5 in a row in the fourth quarter? Next time down, he has a wide open 3. I think Morris was covering him. I mean, how many times you see that this year where the Celtics would score, the other team would come down and hit a wide open 3?
Well, we're going to get to more on the Celtics later. Part of the thing that you face day to day in sports is trying to solve problems. And it reminds me of the story of Curly and the Three Stooges. They're going fishing, and Curly had a shotgun and he shoots a hole in the boat. So then Larry says, I'll fix that. So he shoots another hole, he says, to let the water out. And it's too often in sports that you see those sorts of actions that you have one problem and then a general manager or ownership creates a new problem instead of trying to fix the old one. And we're definitely going to have to talk about that with the potential of breaking up a good thing in search of something better. There's a false duality in the National Basketball League. There's old school that says, why are you taking all these threes? And new school that says, why aren't you taking even more threes? And part of that stems from former Philadelphia and Houston executive Sam Hinkie, who's really done extensive analytic studies. And the points per possession over the long haul are the highest when you take a lot of threes. So that's why if you look at a shot chart of the Rockets or the Warriors, it's mostly threes and layups and not so much in the mid-range. But if you're not making them, then you get into a situation where you live by it and you're stuck taking them, or you need some alternative, try to get to the basket. And in the playoffs, the way they're officiated, they let so much go that it's tough to get to the rim without getting slaughtered, and they may or may not call a foul.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, the percentages show that, a three-point shot is a shot to take. When you're open, what the problem you have is when you're not hitting them, you don't get fouled on them. You're not getting the other team in foul trouble by taking the ball to the hoop. So you got to look at it that way too. But, the Celtics live with the three-pointer. They got all the way to the 7th game.
Right, they were 7 for 39 in the final game, and one of them was a garbage time last 10-second shot by Brown, so it's even worse than that. So they just couldn't make anything. And it wasn't bad enough, but the ones they were missing, like Rozier he was missing just by a lot. He was short and right. It's one thing if you have a lot of in and outs or whatever. They were just missing terribly.
Well, I got a lot to say when we get to our Celtic talk.
Yeah. What's going to be interesting as we move now toward football season is the NFL has a new kickoff rule, and there's a whole slew of rule changes that are going on the kickoffs. Probably the biggest ones are, number one, you have to have 5 players on either side of the ball at all times, and the players can't get a running start anymore. They have to line up within a yard of the kickoff, so it's at the 34. So that's going to slow down the initial collisions, and there's no blocking in the initial 15 yards until the ball either hits the ground or is touched. So I don't know if that means we're going to see a lot more squib kicks as part of the strategy.
And how are they supposed to see the ball hit the ground?
Well, I think if you just kick it, I guess you have to be looking back to see.
Wow.
So you say that may not be so easy to do. There's no more wedge blocking allowed. And what else is there? Oh, and now the receiver doesn't have to down the ball. If it lands in the end zone, you can just let it go, and it'll automatically be called a touchback. So that'll be interesting. The Patriots picked up Cordarrelle Patterson in the offseason. He's got a little bit probably oversized salary, but he's a terrific return guy, so he might have more value with these rule changes. The NBA playoffs on the other side of the bracket went to 7 games. You see 2 teams that play diametrically opposed. Houston dribbles the air out of the basketball. Harden goes one-on-one, and then with 5 seconds to go, either drives or takes a three. This is sort of the second year in a row that Harden kind of spit the bit in the playoffs.
Yeah, what was he 0 for? Were they 0 for 20 or something on
I
three-pointers?
think they missed 29 in a row.
Wow.
It was just, they just couldn't throw it in the ocean last night. And they even shot worse than the Celtics did, if it's imaginable. And again, they're the team that is most dependent on the three in all of basketball. So one of the points that Sam Hinkie, the aforementioned executive, measures is that he says statistics show that 3 is better than 2, and he also says that defense is hard to measure. So there's a lot of comparison going on now, Jordan versus LeBron, and there's the people who dislike either one for whatever reason. Obviously, LeBron has nobody around him now. He's got very limited talent playing with him. I mean, really, there's not one player that, if you said, do you want him on your team, maybe Tristan Thompson is probably the one who's the best player. But beyond that, and Korver is a short minute shooter.
He's in and out.
Yeah. But Jordan played with pretty good talent along the way. I mean, obviously he had Pippen, Rodman,
At times,
Kukoc.
Rodman. Yeah, he had a good team. He had good talent with him. Not great talent,
Not
but
great,
good
but
talent.
good talent. I mean, and LeBron, when he was at Miami, he certainly had really good talent with Wade and Bosh. But the 2008 Cavs that he got to the finals, they had the second best player on the team was Larry Hughes, and he averaged, I think, 14 points a game. They had nobody.
Yeah,
So
but he
it was-
also had Kyrie and Love, too.
Oh, he did?
You know, they won one championship because Kyrie had that three.
Right. So but overall, getting to the finals 8 years in a row, especially with, a team like this, what he totally carried on his back, really a great tribute to what he is capable of. And the other thing is he's very philanthropic. His foundation just announced a $41 million aid package for educating young people in his area. So, people say he's got a lot of money. Well, I don't care, even if you have a lot of money, $41 million is a lot to give away. So, another issue that comes up is the analytics people. I'm hearing him say, like, well, if you try to calculate the contemporary player equivalence rating, which looks at rebounding and scoring and everything else, the top players of the day are way better than people like Bill Russell. And because there's no defensive metrics included in that. How many shots did Russell block, alter, or people were afraid to even shoot because they knew he'd block it? And you just can't.
So defense is not included in this?
No. So you can't make a calculation and compare. They're just apples and oranges.
That's crazy. Half the game you're playing defense.
Right. Well, it's Patriots assistant Mike Lombardi did a really incredible podcast, and he talks about many different things. But he says, for example, he's got a book coming out, and he talks about working with Bill Walsh, Belichick, and Al Davis. And he said, for example, Davis had certain things that he would not alter. He said he'd have the same lunch every day, like a tuna sandwich and 11 French fries. And he said, why did he do this? He said he didn't want to make decisions. He had the same dinner. He had a filet mignon and a lobster for dinner every day. He said he hated to make the day-to-day decisions. He said, but he was in love with speed. And he took a receiver one year because he won the state championship in 100-yard dash in Florida. And so he got this guy, I think his name was Ted Wynn or something, and he's talking to him and saying, like, yeah, I'm really impressed. You won the state championship. And literally the guy said, yeah, the white boy slipped coming out of the blocks. And the white boy was Chris Collinsworth. He said Collinsworth was the fastest guy in Florida. But Lombardi was saying that Collinsworth only knows about offense. And he says most commentators only know offense or defense. They don't know both sides of the ball. He says, if you listen to Barkley, he knows offense and defense because he played offense and defense. Or he said why Tony Romo was such a breath of fresh air is that he knows offense and defense because he played for Parcells, and Parcells doesn't let you know offense or defense.
Well, most quarterbacks know offense and defense.
Well,
they have to.
Well, he made the point, and he said when Sims was playing for Parcells and they're playing in a championship game in the NFC, the guy's saying, why won't he throw outs? And Parcells said, he's not seeing the same game that we see.
Yeah, but the thing with Collinsworth, who is a receiver, you'd have to think that most receivers knew offense and defense because they have to understand what the defense is going to be doing. I mean, they spend so much time, reading plays the whole week, watching videos. I mean, you got to know what the defense is doing.
Well,
a good receiver.
Well, he made the point
good.
that probably one of the smartest players who ever played for the Patriots was Randy Moss. And he said, you hear Moss with his West Virginia twang and you think he's not that smart, but he said he's really smart. And he respects you if you're smart. So when he was saying the Raiders coach, Art Shell, he said even though he was African American, Moss didn't think he knew the game, so he just quit on him because he didn't think there was any value there. So he got to the Patriots, and he was really stimulated by playing for Belichick because he really respected Belichick and Brady and their knowledge of the game, so he really got into it. So he was all in for one coach and not all in for his previous coach, just based on the environment. So, trying to project how one player will do in one environment versus another is really a tough sell sometimes. We were talking about defense, and one of the peculiar things about the Gold Glove in baseball is that if two players are kind of similar defensively, it usually goes to the offensive player. So it's a defensive award that so often the superior offensive player gets recognized for. Like Bradley's never won a Gold Glove because he's really not even an adequate offensive player much of the time for the Red Sox.
Look how many times Jeter won the Gold Glove.
Yeah.
Even towards the end of his career.
Yeah, I think he won 5 Gold Gloves, but from defensive metrics, the new ultimate zone rating and win shares defensively, he was low on that, but he did make some key plays in the World Series and so forth, so people had this perception that he was a really strong defender. So, and he obviously was a terrific offensive player throughout his career. So, again, it goes into that argument of, we talk about the balance between offense and defense, but when you get down to crunch time, you've got to be able to score. And the end of the Celtics and the Rockets both occurred because they couldn't score when it really mattered.
Yeah, and you look at it, I mean, most fans, when they watch, nowadays I think more and more understand defense, but it's all about offense. In baseball, who hits home runs, who can run the bases well. I mean, you look at someone like Bradley, the Red Sox fans know he's a very good defensive player. But how many fans on other teams know Pedroia is a great second baseman?
Well, and you watch the basketball games, like James Harden on defense, he basically stands around and tries to figure out a way not to do anything. He's really a terrible defensive player. You can go on YouTube and find, put in Harden no defense, and reams of videos come up of Harden just watching people play offense.
Well, look at LeBron on defense. He rests on defense a lot. He'll be flashy when he blocks those shots from behind, come in and block a shot. But staying with his man on defense, especially as the game gets into the third and fourth quarter, guys like Brown or Tatum, they come off a pick, he's lagging behind. He doesn't even try to beat the pick. And that's when you see, I mean, Brown had so many wide open shots with LeBron covering, but he wasn't hitting them. But, like LeBron, everybody thinks he's a great defense player. He isn't.
Well, people made a big deal about Chris Paul being out for the last couple of games for the Rockets, and obviously he's a spiritual leader for them and a very good player, especially on the pick and roll game. But Iguodala missed most of the series for Golden State, and he's also a really integral player for them. So you had players like Looney playing a lot who really don't get that much minutes. Jordan Bell, guys that are okay, but not top line NBA players.
Neither team looked real good. I mean, again, Golden State, they're hurting a little. Curry's just coming off an injury. He's starting to get a little better. he'll be better against Cleveland in the finals. But both teams were hurting. My feeling was if the Celtics got there, they could give him a series. But we'll talk more about the Celtics. But very disappointing that they didn't get there.
Right. You have this ambivalence or cognitive dissonance because 5 minutes into the season, you expect nothing because Gordon Hayward goes down with a fractured dislocation of his ankle, and then they get you all the way to the 7th game of the Eastern Conference Finals. And obviously there were some good things in that young players who would never have gotten these kind of minutes or development or experiences against top-flight competition will be ready for next year, and there'll be a minutes crunch somewhat for next year.
Well, that's what happens in a lot of sports. A lot of players, and when they're given their chance, a lot of players make it because of injuries. How many times you hear about a player not getting his job back because, when he got injured, the other player came in, did a great job. That happens a lot. Happened with Brady and Bledsoe.
Right. So the Patriots kind of have an interesting offseason going. A lot of controversy as to Brady continuing to miss OTAs, along with Gronkowski. Did Gronkowski officially sign a new deal or extension?
I don't know if he officially signed it.
I know it had to be after the 24th of May because you can't redo the contract within 365 days, but certainly there's a feeling that the Patriots were going to add a sweetener in there for Gronkowski.
Do you really care about both of them right now? I could care less about both of them. Both of them have aggravated me and a lot of the fans. The way they're talking, the way they're acting. You think Brady would be doing this if Garoppolo was still here?
No.
There's no way. That's one thing. I told you before that I'm not crazy about him personally, the type of person he is, from when he was in college and different things that happened, and now he's over there knowing that Garoppolo's gone, they don't have a quarterback, and he's pulling this. The only quarterback in football that hasn't been to the off-season workouts. The only quarterback. Bunch of new players, good opportunity to work with those players, and he knows that there's nothing the Patriots can do. He doesn't have to be there, number one, but anybody who cares about their team will be there. He's been there every other year. Garoppolo gets traded, and now he's pulling this. You think if Belichick knew and Kraft knew that he was going to pull this, there's no way Garoppolo would have. Brady would be traded right now.
Well, I don't think anybody would question that Brady was able to run the kid out of town, and that you're certainly hearing from outside sources like Cassius Marsh on the 49ers that Garoppolo would light up the Patriots defense to the same extent that Brady would, and that everybody knew he could play. It wasn't a secret that he could play. And Brady's resurgence in the last few years occurred presumably because he was pressured by Garoppolo, pushed to try to keep his job. Supposedly the quote was, "I'm not going to be your Bledsoe," that Brady said. But and if it doesn't work out, if the Patriots struggle for whatever reason, it's going to be easy to find blame because he's going to be the one who wasn't there.
But just what he's pulling now. He knew. We talked to Kraft about Garoppolo. What are you going to do? It's either me or him. But if Garoppolo was still here, Brady would be traded. There's no day if he pulled the same thing he's pulling now with Garoppolo here, he definitely would be traded. And Kraft would go along with Belichick. Hey, he's not here with the team when we need him. He's over in Morocco, wherever he is now, with the Prince. Are you kidding me?
Monaco. It's all about the social status and the brand TB12 selling books, selling his app.
And then Gronk pulling what he's pulling. Who really cares? To tell you the truth, I would love to see that rookie quarterback they got from LSU. I would love to see him play. I'd have some talent and them trade Brady.
Well,
and if Garoppolo doesn't come to the mandatory 3 days, that's in June. If neither one of them come to that, I would trade Brady right there. And if Garoppolo didn't come, I would trade him too.
Gronk?
Gronk. If Gronk didn't come.
Well, I think they'll be there, but it is disappointing because of all the sports, we think of football as the ultimate team sport, and it seems more like it's to the Red Sox, old Red Sox style, where there's one rule for most of the team and then separate rules for the superstars.
And then everybody knocks Belichick about Butler, who was playing terrible football, but better than the people they had playing in front of him in the Super Bowl. But had a terrible second half of the season, was doing anything he wanted, right? And Brady's upset about that, talking about he's been a great teammate. Well, you know what he's been doing? He's been playing for himself second half of the season. I've never seen anybody get beat as much as he was by 5, 7, 8 yards. He was getting beat. But Brady should worry about himself. He's the one who made the big error in the Super Bowl. When he's looking downfield, when he had 2 guys wide open, and he gets stripped of the football, and they lose the football. He made the worst play of the game.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. Well, we're going to do a deep dive on the Celtics season. Overall, you have to call it a success. Sure, there are disappointments, especially injury-wise, and I have a lot of questions about Kyrie Irving. Most of the time when players have, or any individual gets a patellar fracture, that's a kneecap, it usually gets a fracture or a split in the middle, so that you have an upper half and a lower half, and then they rewire it with tension wire and screws to hold it together until it heals. Well, when they removed the wire, they found that he had an infection, and obviously it had been a couple of years, so it has to be a slow-growing infection, probably not MRSA, probably something like staph epidermidis, which is a surface bacteria, but it can be hard to eradicate. And then they had to take out the hardware because infected hardware only needs very few bacteria to sustain the infection. Now, usually you need to be on long-term antibiotics, and I've seen people on antibiotics for years in this situation with orthopedic infection. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens, although we're not going to get any bacteriology reports and information about Irving's specifics, but it's just, you hope that he's going to be able to heal and he's not going to have long-term problems going forward because he's in a contract year now.
Yeah, when you're saying years, does that include the operation? People have the operation, or is it people that don't have the operation that are on antibiotics?
I've seen people who've had operations for this problem who stay on suppressive antibiotics for the rest of their life. So I don't think that's going to be him, but something like 3 to 10% of these procedures get infected because it's damaged tissue. So it takes less of bacterial load to infect the damaged tissue. So it'll be really interesting to find out, really more about the inside baseball of the infection. When Gronkowski got hurt and fractured his arm years ago, I think the Patriots orthopedic surgeon did the initial surgery as opposed to like a specialist in that sort of procedure. And medicine's like everything else. There are egos, and an orthopedic surgeon who's a general orthopedist is capable of doing that. It's not as though you only have to have a specialist to operate on fractures. But when it was secondarily infected, did people raise questions? Probably. I think the Patriots have a different orthopedic surgeon than they did when Gronkowski was there. But nobody said it was poor practice. It just got a bad result.
Well, getting back to Kyrie, I'm worried about his knee myself. Is it going to happen every year? What do you think if it was successful?
My expectation is probably a extremely high chance of success. Now, what does that mean in numbers? I'd say, I'm just guessing, probably over 90% successful, but which then gets us into what's the redundancy plan, what's the backup plan? Do you go with Smart, who's more of a defensive player than a sort of conventional point guard, or somebody like Rozier, who did a good job filling in? He had a nightmare of a game in Game 7, but that doesn't detract from his overall play. He struggled the last half of the Cleveland series, no question.
Well,
except for Game 6.
To me, Rozier and Smart have to be coached better. That's my feeling. I mean, I look at Rozier as a loose cannon. He played some real good basketball for them, and then at times, he plays like a knucklehead. He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand the game really well. He's just like 100%. Well, you see him when he gets the ball in the sand, He dribbles, goes left, goes right, until he can either get a shot off or he has nothing and he has to pass the ball. He's starting to make some pretty good passes at times, but not like a true point guard. He's more of a two guard, a scorer coming off the bench. Smart, believe it or not, you would think it was the other way around. Smart is more of a point guard than he is a two guard.
Well, they both did a good job limiting turnovers, which how I'm not really sure, but they did that. I was disappointed to see Brown and Tatum sometimes driving without protecting the ball and getting stripped a lot. I thought they get stripped more than you'd expect. Maybe some of that is looser officiating.
Oh, in the playoffs,
in the
for sure.
playoffs.
Tatum got fouled a number of times, but they didn't call it. A number
Right.
of times. You could see him on the arms.
Yeah, and
You know,
LeBron gets fouled every time he goes to the hoop. Now, one of the issues for the Celtics is they try to play what's called ice defense. So on the side pick and roll, the guard defender, specifically Rozier, tries to stay and force the dribbler wide to the outside. The problem is that they usually would run that to LeBron, and then they would bring LeBron high, and then they'd have to switch, and then they'd clear out with LeBron on Rozier, and Rozier has no shot.
They wouldn't have to switch. I would say 60, 70% of the time they don't have to switch. They just do.
Yeah,
And I don't know if it's being told by Stevens, I want you switching every time, but you see the games, they just give up on the pick right away and they switch.
Well, I think that the de facto standard in the NBA now is trying to switch everything, which is, you just don't, Rozier can't play those big guys. And it's the same thing, Houston tried to switch on Durant, and I don't know who can cover Durant either, but trying to put a little, Durant's a 7-footer who can handle the ball and shoot over anybody. So it just becomes an impossible situation to defend.
Yeah, there was a game where they were playing in Cleveland where Rozier was on LeBron at least 10 times in the second half. And I'm saying, you've got to be kidding me. In half the time, at least, or more, he didn't have to switch. And he's switching, and it was completely, it was worse than watching middle school basketball players play. I think they understood the game on the pick and either you beat the pick or whatever, you teach them that. It was like Stevens wasn't teaching. Well, you know how I felt since last year. Stevens doesn't teach how to defend the pick and roll, pick and pop. He doesn't teach it properly. They never attack the pick, number one, to trap the guy with the ball, make him dribble away from the basket, then recover. They never trap the pick and go into a zone, a three-man zone, until they've recovered.
Well, they defend the pick and roll different against different teams. On Toronto, they try to bring the guard into a chase situation over the top. So because Kyle Lowry tends to shoot more than drive. So they don't go under with Lowry, they go over the top and try to have the guard turn the corner, which I know this is technical stuff. But I know that because I saw them work on it at practice. It came to when the simple answer was they couldn't handle LeBron, which is not surprising because nobody seems to be able to handle LeBron. They kept him away from the basket at times, but he's just such a force. And if you try to double him, he's going to hit somebody who, at least during the regular season, was able to make shots, whether it was Korver or Smith, I think. But just a tough situation. And of course, we have recency bias in that the bad taste in your mouth at the end of the season is the last game of the year, and everybody's going to remember the Celtics' terrible shooting in that particular game.
But they, again, I remember, I think I told you last year when they were playing Washington, and Beal was coming off a pick and hitting those shots all day on the Celtics when he scored 38 points against them. And my brother-in-law called me and they go, "What's going on?" I said, "What they're doing is they're not attacking the pick. They should be attacking the pick, coming up on them and trapping them, go into a little zone until they recover, like some teams, like Cleveland did to Isaiah last year before he got hurt. They were attacking him every time, and they have to dribble away from the basket. Celtics never do that."
Well, what Cleveland did perceptively was when the Celtics tried to force the ball inside to Horford, they just double-teamed him because they said they can't make shots right now. And the Celtics were never able to compensate for that because they had such a terrible shooting night. So they were able to
That was the 6th game.
Yeah, but even the 7th game, they double
Not
teamed him.
not early though. Early he was scoring.
Earlier he
scored
did okay.
14 in the first half. They weren't doubling them. I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe they thought the Celtics were going to adjust to that. Second half they did a couple of times, but not all that much in the last game. The 6th game they trapped them, and then he was taking fall-away jump shots in the second half.
Yeah. And another issue for them was, for whatever reason, they seemed to be having trouble getting into the offense. They weren't getting into the offense till there were 10, 12 seconds
That's
left on
been
the
all
clock.
year, Ron.
Well,
That's what Rozier or Smart dribbling the ball until it's 10 seconds ago.
well, that's when people say, oh, they don't need Kyrie Irving. That's the difference in having Kyrie Irving who can attack the basket early.
But, right, other than Kyrie, the one player on the team that can break down a defense in the half court is Tatum. He can break down, he's the best passer out of all of them, except maybe Smart. I'm not counting Kyrie or Hayward. Hayward's a great passer. But in the last 12 possessions they had in the game, Tatum touched the ball once. In the last 12 possessions, he brought Rozier back in the game after he was like 0 for 8 on three-pointers, and he clanked 2 more near the end of the game.
Yeah, I think that was a hope move. He was looking for a spark, hoping that there'd be some kind of reversion to the mean that Rozier would be able to start hitting.
And he didn't play Baines enough either. He
Yeah,
should have
Baines-
played Baines, was causing problems.
Well, I don't know if that's because Baines had a broken nose.
Oh,
So Baines is getting surgery to repair his broken nose. I don't know. They never announced that he had a broken nose. He just played with a broken nose.
But, you think of it, as a Celtic fan, I mean, Rozier was terrific. Rozier's terrific as a 2-guard, not a point guard. Smart's okay as a point guard and not a 2-guard. When he's in there with Rozier, I've told you before, them two are in the game, forget Brown and Tatum. Then when they get the ball, there's going to be like 8 seconds left on the shot clock.
Well, Smart he drives you crazy because he takes so many shots that don't go down. And then he drives other people crazy by making insane plays like getting the rebound late or drawing a charge or making a terrific pass. He's a winning player, but he's a maddening player. He's not going to make, if somebody said, oh, he's going to go to the Knicks, so what? I mean, he's not going to make a bad team good.
If they sign Smart, they're going to trade Rozier. If they sign Smart. If they give Smart a 4-year contract at, say, $13 million a year, then Rozier's definitely gone, because what you got to look at is Smart will now be, who's more of a true point guard than Rozier. He'll be the backup to Kyrie, and he'll be the backup to Brown at guard. You're not going to have both of them there. What are you going to do with both of them there if they're going to sign Smart?
Well, there's going to be a log jam for minutes. It would
Not
seem,
really if one of them goes.
Well, it seems like the person who's most likely to lose out is Marcus Morris. So I think he's probably the person who's most tradable.
But Ron, think of this. You got 48 minutes, okay? 96 for guards, all right? So you got Brown and Kyrie, say, playing 32 minutes each, which Stevens likes to do. Then you got Smart coming in behind them, all right? There's 64 minutes.
Well, the issue
96, there's another 32 minutes.
Well, the issue is the 20 games a year that Irving misses because of injury.
Well, then you got Larkin behind them that'll get playing time.
He's a free agent. So.
But they have a first-round draft pick. They'll bring in another guard. And then up front, people think it's a logjam. You've got Tatum, Hayward, and you got Morris playing the 3 and the 4. Those 3 guys. There's 32 minutes each for those 3 guys. And then up front, you got Tice, you got Horford, and say they signed Baines. I mean, they can work it in. So it's not going to really be a big logjam. There's 9 players right there.
Well, Chuck Daly, 2-time NBA championship coach, had a saying that players want 48 minutes, 48 shots, and 48 million. So the problem is, where do people's egos fit in? Now, so far the young players have been, I won't say subservient, but they don't talk too much. Probably Brown, being the player representative, talks a little bit more than Tatum. Tatum started to speak out a little bit more in the playoffs. And then people are talking like Hayward has a prima donna instinct in him. I don't know.
No, I've seen him play. He doesn't. He's a great teammate. Hayward?
That's what they're saying. I don't know. first he has to get healthy. Supposedly he's back playing some one-on-one now.
Hayward's going to be the smartest player they have, even smarter than Kyrie. I told you, I saw him play against Golden State in the playoffs last year when he scored 30, 32, and 29, 3 games in a row. And he ran the offense in the second half. They switched it up. He's great in half-court offense, passing the ball, understanding the game, scoring, driving, shooting. I mean, he's something like Tatum, but smarter player right now.
Well, there aren't that many destinations that are logical for Smart right now because the salary cap didn't, when it rose a lot, people signed guys, and then last year it came back a little bit because of lower TV money. So there's a paucity of franchises that could use a guard that don't already have a guard.
Who would you rather see with the Celtics next year, Rozier or Smart?
Well, the issue is not just for 1 year. I mean,
Yeah, for the next 4 years.
I guess I'd rather see Smart because I'm afraid of Rozier trying to shoot the ball too much. There's only one ball, and Hayward and Irving are going to need their touches. Tatum is going to need his, and I don't think they need. I think Smart is willing to score less. I don't think Smart cares that much about the scoring, whereas Rozier, I think it's very integral to who he is as a player.
See, I think Smart will interfere with the other players too much. I mean, he'll do things that actually hurt Tatum, Hayward, Kyrie, Brown, Horford. I don't think he would blend in on the offensive end with them. Well, on defense he would. But on the offense, he wouldn't blend in with them well. I think Rozier would blend in more, especially when he was playing the 2 with Kyrie at times to give Brown a rest. He would blend in more because at that point he wouldn't be handling the ball all that much. But the key with the Celtics next year is if Stevens and Ainge talk to Kyrie and say, listen, we want you to be a true point guard. We don't want you shooting the ball thinking that you're going to take the last shot every game, shoot the ball 23 to 25 times a game. We want you to get 10 assists a game. Imagine him as a true point guard getting 10 assists a game with the shot he has and the penetration he has. And if he gets 10 assists a game, the Celtics, if that happens and they don't have injuries, they'll win 70 games next year.
I think that when you go to the player, you've got to say, how do you see your role going forward? This is one possibility. How do you feel about that? Because, I mean, he came to the Celtics because he wanted to be the man, and he couldn't coexist with LeBron. He's said all the right things this year. I mean, the knee injury, that was bad luck, I guess, more than anything else. Overall, they don't have a lot of holes to fill. There was rumor about the Celtics looking to trade Rozier and the Sacramento pick to Memphis for their number 1 pick is the number 4 pick. And then the Celtics were interviewing Michael Porter Jr., who's a big man. So that the thought was that the Celtics were going to try to get a big man for Rozier and the Sacramento pick.
Oh, they're not going to get that pick.
I don't know.
Well, maybe. Sacramento could be a top. Well, it can't be a 1 pick because Sacramento saves the pick if it's 1.
It'd probably be in the top 5.
But Sacramento's going to get a pretty good player this year too. So
now, Memphis is. I think
Well, what about Minnesota?
Memphis already has Mike Connolly, which, he's already on a max contract. I think 5 years, $150 million. So you're talking about throwing a lot of money around.
Well, we can talk about the trades too in the next segment because I heard a couple of other trades.
Okay, well, trade rumors in the next segment. We'll be right back. Well, it's trade rumor central. Ralph has more trade rumors to spread, so.
No, what I heard is Towns is not happy over there in Minnesota with Thibodeau. There's a situation there, and Thibodeau's not happy with Towns. Thought he should have given more, especially at the end of the games. A lot of games they lost that were close, and Towns is not happy, and rumors again, but Brown, the Sacramento pick, and another number 1 pick, because Towns hasn't signed his. He's still on his rookie contract.
Right.
And Brown's of course on his rookie contract, so they can make that deal. Word was that maybe Brown and Horford for Towns, but that wouldn't match. The monies wouldn't match. So, you get Brown, a great young player. You get the Sacramento pick and the Celtics next first round pick. Maybe they have the Memphis pick coming up that is 14 protected, and the Dallas, which is 16 protected. Maybe they'll give up one of those picks, and maybe they'll get Towns, because if they ever get Towns, I wouldn't trade Brown for many players, but I would trade Brown for Towns in that Sacramento pick.
Towns is a real good player. Towns he's sort of a Anthony Davis light. He's got a perimeter game, and he's another guy who's almost like a Garnett. He's really driven. He wants to be a great player. So.
One-on-one, forget about the monies. Who would you trade Tatum for right now? How many players in the NBA? Not many.
No, not that many right now. Tatum's got a big upside. Obviously, Paul Pierce kind of sees him as the next great Celtic. I think that the dynamic between Brown and Tatum will be really interesting, because they really seem to get along well. At practice, they were working out together. They're kind of workout buddies and everything.
Tatum,
So.
Would you trade him for the Greek Freak?
Oh yeah. That Antetokounmpo is ridiculous. I don't even know what to compare him to.
They were talking to Scalabrine last night, and he said he wouldn't trade him for the Greek Freak because he said he's going to be better than him because he can shoot. And and would you trade him for the kid from New York?
Oh, Porzingis?
Yeah.
No, he's already coming off injuries. It's interesting that my reading anyway is that the sooner you come back from ACL surgery, the more likely you are to injure the same knee or the opposite knee. So the trend is that they're going to extend the recovery, and so Porzingis is going to sit out the whole year. Now, part of that may be tanking long term for the good of the franchise too, but I think it's mostly to try to prevent re-injury because he's such a young guy.
Yeah, there's not many players I would trade him for. I wouldn't trade him for Kyrie, who I love. I wouldn't trade him. I don't know if I trade him for Durant right now because of the age situation.
Well, Kawhi Leonard, I just think he's radioactive because there's something wrong there that he wouldn't play for the Spurs. He should have been able to come back from that injury.
Can he play the two position, Leonard?
Yeah, he can play the two.
If he could play the two position, how old is he? 26, 7?
Yeah, I think he's 26.
If he could play the two position, I would trade Brown for him.
Well, they don't. The Spurs want a massive package. They're looking for multiple players, multiple picks.
I don't know who they're going to get from what team.
I don't know.
The Celtics have the best thing, Brown in the Sacramento pick.
Well, anyway, all right. So one of the other interesting issues that came up in the Mike Lombardi podcast was trying to evaluate players' character, and Lombardi said that they have kind of he said his approach was, he didn't call it underhanded or sneaky, he said it's matter of fact. He said he would get in touch with college women from the largest sororities and have them on the payroll to feed information about the players in the Southeastern Conference. He said there's nowhere where you get more reliable information than from those women who would get it from the guys. So they could judge whether the guy was a good guy or a bad guy, and they'd talk about teammates. So he said that now the players didn't know that these women were information gathering, but he said that was the best source that he had in making a character judgment on these guys.
Yeah, and them and the coaches too. The coaches that, especially Belichick's close to Saban.
He said that most of the time the coaches now won't say anything negative about a player because they're too concerned about getting sued from about character references.
Like Belichick calling Saban, no one even know he would talk to him.
I don't know, but anyway, so.
Well, they got two good Georgia players.
Right. Now, I guess we switch gears to baseball. Seems like there's a three-way race in the American League between the Astros, who've been playing really well lately, the Yankees, and the Red Sox. It's totally up for grabs right now. Yesterday Verlander had another good game against the Yankees. He pitched almost 7 innings and gave up 1 run. And I guess the Yankee fans gave him quite a negative ovation coming off the field, and he tipped his cap.
Oh, to his Houston fans that were behind his dugout.
Yeah.
There's a ton of
Right.
Houston fans. You know, it's funny. When he was with Detroit, he was starting to go down. He wasn't pitching well. 3.8 ERA. I think he was in the 4s too at times. Now all of a sudden he's 1.11 at 35 years old. I mean, that tells me something too. Maybe he's pulling another Clemens.
Well,
How could you be that good at 35 after the 3 previous years? Not just like Clemens when he went to Toronto.
right. We know that whenever you build a better mousetrap, the mice are always getting better too. So I'm not saying that any player is or isn't using performance-enhancing drugs. It's just a big industry, and it's always unusual when you see older players who start performing at a even higher level than they were performing before. The Red Sox probably made the interesting move of the spring, designated Hanley Ramirez for assignment. Now, he hadn't been playing well. He'd been not hitting at all, and there's some feeling that he's one of the players on the team that when he's doing well has the capacity to hit better pitching, which most of the players don't, with the exception of J.D. Martinez. So I can't imagine that there's no reason for a team to trade for him, because then they have to pick up his salary, so they can just let him become a free agent and pay him the minimum and make the Red Sox pay the rest.
Yeah, I got in this discussion with a couple of people. Said, well, the Red Sox didn't have to pay. I said, no, not even if he becomes a free agent, the Red Sox will have to pay.
Right.
But they're saying the other team when they said no. When they sign him, now what happens if the Red Sox owe him, say, $12 million? The team can he ask for $5 million from a team, or does he have to go for the minimum?
No, I think he has to take whatever they're offering him. I think he could refuse to sign.
Or they can offer him $10 million, so now he's getting 12 plus the 10
Well, I
for
don't
the
know why
rest of the year.
I don't know why they would offer any extra
But
money.
wouldn't that come off the Red Sox payroll? Isn't
Yeah,
that the rule?
if you paid the whole, whatever fraction you pay, it would reduce what the Red Sox
So
are
they're
paying.
gonna give him maybe.
$500,000
Yeah.
or whatever, whatever the
But that's a
minimum
big.
is.
To me, as a Yankee fan, I was happy to see that.
Well, the
I
Red
don't like to
Sox-
see him batting third.
Well, the Red Sox didn't want to be responsible if he had 495 plate appearances for the $22 million option
Right.
for next year. Now, the Red Sox said, oh, that didn't figure into it. Well,
Of course it did.
yeah, I mean, when people are telling you crazy things, you just say, well,
So you're keeping Swihart? If that didn't factor into it, you're
You know.
keeping Swihart ahead of him?
I mean, Swihart, I'm not quite sure what the infatuation is. He's an athletic young guy who can switch hit and is a mediocre defensive catcher. I mean, when has he ever hit in the majors? I mean, before he got hurt, he was hitting 300 when he crashed into the wall and left, the side wall. But since then, he hasn't hit at any level. I don't think he hit in the minors, and he hit for a while in spring training this year, but what does that mean?
The Yankees pitching staff worries me, although this kid that pitched yesterday, he's got talent. He's real young. I think he's from the Dominican Republic, and he's got a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, good curve, good changeup. I was watching that game.
Did they send Torres back to the minors?
No, Torres.
Oh, Torres.
Torres is unbelievable.
Yeah,
He could be Rookie of the Year this year.
He's done really well.
But
Seems like Gregorius has cooled off some.
he's been real bad, but he'll get going again. He's in a bad slump. But they got Bird back. He had a home run off of Verlander yesterday. But him in the middle of that lineup, and the Yankees really haven't. They lead the majors in runs scored, but they really haven't clicked yet. When they start clicking, they're gonna be tough. The pitching staff worries me, but I think this rookie they have here that pitched last night, he gave up a 3-run homer because he had 2 guys on with 1 out, 3 and 1 count, threw right down the middle.
Well, the Red Sox have played better, really coincident with Benintendi starting to hit. I haven't figured him out yet. I don't know.
He's good. He's going to be a star.
I think he's a good player. I think defensively he's not great.
He's going to be right behind Betts. I mean, Betts is one of the top players in baseball. Benintendi's going to become one of the top players in baseball in the next couple of years. He's going to be a 300 hitter, 20, not as many home runs as Betts, maybe around 20 a year. You know, pretty good base runner. If he uses his head, he's quick. Sometimes, I think he goes back to last year when they were trying to stretch everything.
Yeah, they've been running into a lot of outs this season too. You know, Martinez is an interesting guy because he's like Judge. He's got amazing power to the opposite field. I mean, he's kind of more of a threat to hit it to right than left.
They got the best out of that. You know, I said that. You know, the difference, him and Stanton, he's a better hitter than Stan. Stan's got a little more power when he hits the ball.
Right.
But Martinez is going to end up with more home runs this year because he connects on the pitch better than Stanton does. Stan strikes out a lot more.
Well, Martinez is one of the top hitters in the league against pitches greater than 95 miles an hour. So, which is nowadays, starting in the 6th inning, they go to the bullpen and everybody throws 95.
But how the Red Sox almost lose out on him? They fooled around and fooled around. Finally, he signed with them, but no one else wanted to give him 20-something million?
Well, it seems like there was that dirty word collusion this year that the owners got together and must have said we're not paying over a certain amount. You know, we'll see. They usually don't maintain that discipline for very long.
But if the Red Sox pitching staff stays healthy, if they stay healthy, if Price stays healthy, Seal, Porcello, they got the pitching over the Yankees.
Well, there's going to be some mega contracts handed out pretty soon. Obviously, Machado is he could get traded any day. We don't really know why the Orioles are holding on to him. There seems to be a power struggle between Angelos' children and Brady Anderson, who some people are saying is the de facto general manager, and Duquette is being frozen out.
How about Machado for Gregorius? And then the Yankees give him $35 million a year.
Well, he's going to get.
I mean, wouldn't that be a good deal for Baltimore?
Yeah, probably.
You get Gregorius.
I mean, Gregorius is a good player, and you know, they'd probably want even more than that though for Machado, which seems like would be giving up a lot for short term.
Give him Gregorius and one of your relief pitches. One of your pretty good relief pitches.
It doesn't matter. Baltimore's not going anywhere, so
no, I
mean,
mean,
and they're stuck with. I'm sure the Orioles would probably say, "We want you to take Chris Davis."
No, but I mean, if they get Gregorius from the Yankees, one of the best fielding shortstops in the league, a 300 hitter, he's not, you know, he's in a bad slump right now with some power. You know, you're going to get a real good shortstop for the next 8 years, and maybe you're a pretty good relief pitcher.
Well, if I'm the Orioles, I'd be saying I want you to take Davis off our hands too.
Oh.
You know, and he's not good. He's just got money that's baggage. What else we got?
How about your coaching? How's your team coming?
Well, we had our
summer
first workout this summer, so you know, all the soreness hasn't kicked in yet.
You have a real good group.
I have
a bunch of great kids.
I have a really excellent group of young players and
they're going to be
families.
7th graders.
They're going to be 7th graders. You know, my team is never going to be as successful as far as wins and losses as the next team because everybody's going to play a certain amount. You know, I mean, if you want to win, like the teams from Pentucket and Bill Rickadoo, they shorten the rotation. They only have 8 players on the team, so that way you don't have any weak players. That's one way to do it, but I don't really think that's ideal for giving the biggest number of kids a chance. So if it's all about winning, that's a good way to do it. But I prefer to do it a different way. And you know, I'm hoping to have a summer what I call Orange School program. It's modified based off of Blue Man Group. Blue Man Group has something called Blue School. So they bring in people and train them in all aspects of everything Blue Man Group. So I've got some high-end video. I've been collecting short videos, 3-5 minute videos off of YouTube. I have the master class from Stephen Curry on his instruction on shooting, ball handling, driving, setting up your shots in different ways. So I've got a lot of summer education that I intend to show the kids with some parental supervision as well. So I'm looking forward to kind of a global education program for this group, and it's a really enthusiastic group, and I think they could be really good.
How many days
forward.
a week are you doing it?
Well, till school ends, I'm just going to do it one. I know that a lot of these kids are really excellent students, and I don't want to distract too much from school. But once school ends, I'll try to go to 2 days a week, one weekday and one weekend day, and then we'll fit in these video sessions. You know, the quickest way to improve in basketball is to improve your understanding of the game. You know, longer term, the players who truly understand the complexity of the game and making good decisions under stress are going to be the best players. And you know, and you get some of that from playing, but some of it you can pick up from watching film. Footwork, defensive techniques. There's a lot of new stuff that's come in over the last 25 years.
And you're not looking at any summer leagues, right?
No, I'm not planning to do a summer league this year. You know, kids are so busy now with other sports and going away on vacation and doing everything, and plus it adds expense for the parents. And I think that it's important to be sensitive to the cost that parents bear between, you know, when you have an athlete, they have additional health costs, they have additional fees in all kinds of sports. They have, you know, some of them belong to the Y or other types of programs. They play AAU. You know, so there's always somebody there looking for money, and it's really tough for most families, I think.
The girls' high school team has their first game tonight in Woburn.
Well, they should be very strong coming back.
Yeah, they have a lot of talent coming back. They lose one player, really.
Well, you know, if we consider the school in total, they had an exceptional football team wins the state championship. They had multiple wrestlers that won state championships. The boys lacrosse team has one defeat and will be looking to go deep into the playoffs. The girls lacrosse team won the Freedom Division for the first time this year.
The volleyball team went to the state finals.
Volleyball team went to the state finals. There's so much success.
The hockey teams both made the playoffs, right?
Right. So there's been so much success across the system that you know, you have to give credit to the high school coaches. You have to give credit to the parents who make a lot of sacrifices. The booster clubs that promote these teams. There's a lot, and you know, of course, to the players who put forth great effort and you know, work hard day after day. That's not seen behind the scenes.
In the girls' track, I was looking at that. The 4x100 team came in first place in Division 3 or 2, wherever it was. They came in. This Melrose girls' track team came in 6th. And again, I'm not sure if it's a Division 2 or 3. But the 4x100, I love that event. That's a great event.
I think that's Isaac Seed's sister.
Oh, maybe she's
anchored that. And I think she may have won the 100.
I looked at that. I didn't see anybody else winning. Maybe she did.
I don't know.
Maybe I missed it.
All right. I've enjoyed being with you tonight. I'm Ron Sen.
And I'm Ralph LaBella, and thank you for watching Let's Talk Sports.